January 2023 marks the 10th anniversary of Strikeforce's final MMA event, reminding fans of the stars and legends that graced the promotion in its short history. Today we look at the fighters whose time in California is far less revered, from former UFC champions to one of the sport's biggest ever icons. Welcome to the INC, and these are 5 famous fighters you never knew fought in Strikeforce. It didn't take long for Kane Velasquez to secure his place as an MMA star. After a college wrestling career that saw him ranked 4th nationally, Kane Velasquez joined the American Kickboxing Academy in 2005, with head coach Javier Mendez describing the fighter as one of the most promising he'd ever seen. It led to much intrigue around Velasquez's debut, where the fighter took on 3-1 Jesse Fujarsik in October 2006. Fujarsik's previous fight in Strikeforce saw him lose to former pro wrestler Daniel Puder, and commentator Frank Shamrock made no bones about how he thought the fight would play out.
The wrestler and the Ronin, I'd see this going to the ground, big ground and pound, and I hate to say it, but I think the Ronin's about to get mashed.
Shamrock's apprehension proved justified, with Velasquez landing several blows from crucifix before finally finishing his opponent midway through the first round. Velasquez winning his pro debut, having never taken a single punch in the fight.
And that's it! A sparkling pro debut for Kane Velasquez! First round TKO!
Velasquez claimed a second win in short order competing for the upstart Bodog Fighting Championships, and 2 fights were enough for the UFC to take a chance on the 24-year-old. Velasquez's mix of cardio, wrestling, and improved striking saw him become one of the company's most feared fighters, culminating in his heavyweight title win over Brock Lesnar in only his 9th ever pro fight. Nick Diaz is regarded as one of Strikeforce's greatest ever fighters. The company tenure of younger brother Nate is far less revered. By 2006, Diaz was already 2 fights into his MMA career, beating Alejandro Garcia at WEC 12 before a decision loss competing in Pancrase, with his early career treated as novelty due to Nick's continued success in the UFC. It was this attraction that caught the eye of Strikeforce, who signed Nate for their first ever card against 2-1 Tony Juarez. With both men known for their jiu-jitsu, fans savored the prospect of a grappling-based encounter. It was Diaz who proved more dominant, overwhelming Juarez with his aggression before finishing his fellow Californian with ground and pound.
Oh, yeah, it's over, it's over.
Yeah, that is it. Herb Dean does call an end to it with 1:35 left to go in the first round.
Diaz returned to the WEC with limited success before competing on the UFC's reality show, The Ultimate Fighter. After besting the likes of Gray Maynard and Manny Gambarian, Diaz became a company staple for the next decade, competing for the lightweight title off the back of 6 straight performance bonuses. His win over Conor McGregor turning him from cult darling to one of the sport's biggest stars.
He has done it! It is all over! Nate Diaz beats Conor McGregor!
Kevin Randleman's MMA career has seen him fight all over the world, from a former UFC heavyweight champion to his highlight reel moment in Pride. But his 2-fight tenure in Strikeforce is largely scrubbed from the history books. By the time Pride closed in 2007, Randleman was on a career decline, losing his last 5 fights with the promotion with wrestling heavy game antiquated against more well-rounded competition. This, however, didn't put off Scott Coker, and after returning to light heavyweight, made his company debut against Mike Whitehead in June 2009. Randleman wasted no time attempting to get the fight to the ground, only for Whitehead to stuff his shots before landing his own takedowns in a one-sided first 2 rounds. Down on the scorecards, Randleman threw caution to the wind in a desperate attempt to claim a finish, and in the later stages of the final round, he nearly got it. Whitehead held on to claim a unanimous decision, Randleman's company tenure starting with a whimper rather than a roar. Randleman returned to Strikeforce 11 months later to face unbeaten Roger Gracie. After a competitive first round, Gracie turned the fight in his favor after dropping Randleman with a knee, and being on the ground with the Gracie meant there was only gonna be one result.
Kevin Randleman taps! He taps!
Randleman would compete one more time in Russia before retiring with a 17-16 record, before passing away from heart failure at the age of 44. The Monster's legacy, however, would live on, and in 2020 was inducted to the Pioneer Wing of the UFC Hall of Fame. Yoel Romero's Strikeforce run proved previous credentials mean little in MMA. Romero was considered one of the most acclaimed wrestlers of the early 2000s, a 5-time world championship medalist as well as a silver in the Sydney Olympics, before a conflict with the Cuban Wrestling Federation led him to transitioning to MMA. Romero started his career with a 4-0 record, and it wasn't long before Strikeforce's brass took interest in the Olympian. Romero made his sole Strikeforce appearance on September 10, 2011. A card that featured Daniel Cormier's breakout win over Bigfoot Silva and Alexis Davis stopping Amanda Nunes with strikes, and was given a baptism of fire against former light heavyweight champion Rafael Feijão. Still unfamiliar with the striking game, Romero looked noticeably awkward on his feet, spending the first round dancing on the outside amid jeers from the impatient crowd. Romero's corner implored more action out of their fighter come the start of the second round. It was a decision that quickly came back to haunt them.
Oh, he got him on the swinging back fist.
Feijão finished Romero in the final stages of the second round, handing the former Olympian the first loss of his pro career. At the time of recording, Feijão holds the distinction of being the only man to finish Romero in his entire combat career. Despite the underwhelming performances, Strikeforce's bosses chose to retain Romero's contract, and after the promotion was bought by the UFC, made his company debut in 2013. A move to middleweight transformed Romero's career, an 8-fight winning streak guiding him to 2 title fights and a cult status among MMA fans. Maurice Smith is one of the unheralded legends of MMA. Smith came to national focus in 1997, when as a Pancrase veteran with a 5-7 record, he defeated UFC heavyweight champion Mark Coleman in one of the biggest upsets in company history, before short-lived spells competing for Pride and Rings Championship in Japan. After serving as a coach for the International Fight League, Smith found the urge to compete in MMA once again, and just over 8 years after his last fight, returned to the sport against Rick Rufus at Strikeforce Tacoma in 2008. The fight was a rematch from the two's kickboxing bout in 2003, with many expecting another stand-up war between the two former champions. Unfortunately for MMA newcomer Rufus, Smith had other ideas on his mind.
Maurice Smith has done it.
He got
Maurice Smith gets him to tap out.
Good job. Good
Maurice
work.
Smith with a first-round submission victory over Rick Rufus.
Smith continued in MMA in the years after the fight, going 1-2 in smaller promotions before announcing his retirement at the age of 52. Things meanwhile wouldn't get any better for Rufus, his MMA venture ending at 4 wins and 6 losses. And now, time for a few honorable mentions. Before becoming one of Bellator's greatest fighters, Michael Chandler enjoyed a 2-fight run in Strikeforce in 2010, scoring stoppage wins over Sal Woods and that guy. Shinya Aoki made a rare venture outside Japan when he challenged Ilbert Melendez for the Strikeforce lightweight title. Bob Sapp's jobber tour took him to Strikeforce in 2008. It went as expected.
Sapp is in trouble. Sapp is down and Norte is punching and
That's
punching
it, it's over.
and it's over.
This is the INC. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video.